No, don't.
Yeah. And,
Okay, 31st, 38.
38.
Ready? And Elisha came again to Gilgal, and there was a dearth in the land, and the sons of the prophets were sitting before him. And he said unto his servant, set on the great pot, and seethe pottage for the sons of the prophets. And one went out into the field to gather herbs, and found a wild vine, and gathered thereof wild gores, his lap full, and came and shred them into the pot of pottage, for they knew them not. So they poured out for the men to eat. And it came to pass, as they were eating of the pottage, that they cried out and said, O thou man of God, there is death in the pot.
Ooh, glory.
And they could not eat thereof. But he said, then bring meal. And he cast it into the pot. And he said, pour out for the people, that they may eat. And there was no more harm in the pot.
No evil thing. That's what grace and truth. That was a potluck. We're going to kind of make a couple of reflections. The first point we made was what? What's the point? First point in this text? Famine. And we made some statements concerning famine, right? What did we say about famine?
Leaving the place of provision.
Leaving the place of our provision. Illegitimate authority. Those are the two main. It's a lot of different things that can be connected to it, but those are the two things I felt impressed in my spirit. What's the second point?
Great pot.
Of the great pot. What did we say about the great pot?
Full gospel.
Full gospel.
Church.
Every church is a great pot, right? What was the third thing we mentioned?
One went out.
One went out. What did we say about one that went out? An independent spirit. No private interpretation. We need a witness. What was point number 4? Gather the herbs. What did we say about gathering of the herbs?
Instructions reproducing a particular
Instructions.
manner. Instructions reproducing a particular manner.
Yep. So it's connected to, it's not just herbs, oregano, yeah, and all those different things. What are some of the things we said? It's not oregano. It is not those herbs that you would take to kind of make your food taste better. Although it is a heavenly meal that tastes better because it's connected to the instructions, and it brings light and joy and happiness. What was point number 5?
Wild vine.
Wild vine. And this is where we left off. And this is where we're going to continue on. We were kind of trying to move into point number 6, but I really felt, and I was sharing with Gary this week, that I really felt that we need to kind of go back over it and expound a little bit, allow the Spirit of God to remove some of the layers, and so those that are watching and those that are in the building tonight can get a better understanding of what a wild vine is.
Well, can I mention something before we get started in this text? You know, one of the things that I thought about is you know, when there's a famine. One of the things I think that we need to keep in mind is that when there's a famine, these are the types of things that go on. You know, the things that we are discussing, there's things that happen because of a famine. There's, you know, just like even when there's you know, a famine from hearing the word of God. You know, when we're not hearing the word of God, there's a lot of things there's a lot of ways that we carry on that's not the way that God would like it to be, because there's a lack of. And when we have a lack of, there's many things that go on in our lives when we don't have the right direction. We're not being corrected. We're not hearing the things that we should. And it wasn't a famine from the word being preached. It was the famine from the word being heard. And so that's something that you got to keep in mind. You can be in this house and you can hear the word. It may be a famine. The famine was in the land. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was a famine on the land per se in Joliet. But the famine can also be on your land. You could be the land where there's a famine, because Elijah didn't have a famine. Because Elijah, they sat at his feet and they was listening to him. So it shows that we didn't have to have we don't have to have a famine in your land, but because of the fact that you don't hear. You have ears, but you don't hear. The hearing ear and the seeing eye comes from the Lord. But when you don't hear correctly, when you don't open